Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. My name is Linda Battellini, and this year I'm serving as the chair of your Board of Trustees. Ours is a community of many genders and sexualities, a community of diverse theologies, as well as various cultural, racial, and class backgrounds, a community of varied abilities and gifts. Some find inspiration here in the great books, others in the great outdoors, and others still in great conversations. Whoever you may be, we welcome you to bring your whole self here where we come for community. We find inspiration and we live with purpose together. Today we enjoy our Thanksgiving service, and I'm especially grateful this year when I reflect on the devotion and accomplishments of our UUCA staff members. Since March 2020, every one of them has reached deep down into their creativity to figure out what they could do to help keep us connected with each other. I'm just going to mention a few of the highlights. The most visible was our every Sunday virtual service and coffee hour. Little masterpieces of music, readings, sermons, messages that kept the worship experience alive for so many of us when we really needed it. I think you'll agree that our music leaders took advantage of the new media to offer us great experiences with new soloists and musicians, as well as performers who took precautions to be able to perform for our worship services. And how about our Faith 360 adult ed programs, which more of us participated in than in any previous years, by far. All kept us inspired and engaged with each other. I hope you had a covenant group in your life through all the isolation, where you could build your community by getting to know and care for new people in your life. Our religious education team kept our children in touch with such creative materials and connections. Our youth continued their work on many social justice projects. Our social justice teams took action in bringing food, clothing, and funding to our local agencies to help those in greatest need, while also acting to get out the vote in critical elections and to influence state and local government policies. But let's not forget the people taking care of our building, our finances, and our technology. Today's the day to really pay attention to the people behind the curtain. It was that technology that made so much interaction possible in a way we'd never done before, but that our staff moved into almost seamlessly. I like to think of them as like the ducks that look like they're very calmly paddling across the water, and underneath their legs are going like crazy, because that is what they did. And doesn't our campus look so fresh and ready for action? A new no-pilot stove, seriously upgraded ventilation for our safety, a beautiful parking lot, a building painted, cleaned, maintained, managed, and ready for whatever needs to happen next. All of this was possible only because our staff stepped up to the challenge. And where would we be without every single one of them? And we go forward with our new senior minister, Reverend Amanda Poppy, our Minister of Social Justice and Community Development, Reverend CTC, and our intern minister, Greg, into further uncharted territory. I personally am so looking forward to seeing their ministries unfold within our congregation. So how can you express your gratitude to these 15 individuals? Well, in the back of the sanctuary, there are thank you cards that you can sign. So stop there on your way out of the sanctuary when you're headed outside for fellowship. Make a quick stop, and there's plenty of room for messages of thanks to each and every staff person who was part of the outstanding team that we rely on to maintain our community. Now, if you're watching from home, please express your thanks in the chat in the service, or in the virtual coffee hour after the second service this morning, or send some emails to the staff. You can find their addresses on our website. And the link to the virtual coffee hour is in the chat or in the email that was sent out with the notice of this morning's service. So take a deep breath and let us gather and be grateful for the most important thing, which is to be together today.
Thank you so much, Linda. Your gratitude really means a lot, and I am thankful for your leadership as well. Friends, we have a beautiful Thanksgiving service for you, a service full of joy and gratitude. And I know that many of us come in today with hearts heavy as we continue to process the news of the Rittenhouse verdict. I want to take a moment to hold that, to hold the pain in our country, the ongoing reality of white supremacy and its violence toward people of color. I want to hold the pain even as we celebrate in joy and gratitude for all we have in this community together. I am grateful to serve a congregation where we can hold that all. It is good to be together. Our call to worship this morning is written by our colleague Laura Littlejohn Gray, and it is appropriately named "In the Name of All That Is Complicated." In the name of all that is complicated, may we enter this week gently. May we welcome all the guests that come to our table. The ambiguity of why bother this year, the joy and celebration of fresh-baked pie, the grief of the empty seat that can never be filled, the warmth of candles lit in the dark, the malaise of all you've been told about how to feed your body, the hope of reconnection, of feeling filled for the first time in a long time, the fear of, is this safe enough? The loving bustle of ancestry and recipe and tradition, the horror of history and all the ways it lives on. May we welcome all these guests at our table and all others who come needing a place to call home. There is good news. There is space here, plenty of grace to share in the name of all that is complicated. In the name of all that is complicated, our colleague writes, and I add too, in the name of that which is simple, the reminder that through all this, we have each other. Let us worship together.
We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
Thank you so much, Sanctuary Singers. I have the best view because I can see Sophia while she's directing, and delicious. Speaking of delicious, we have a story to share with you today, and we are going to share it in 3 parts, Rev CTC and I. This story is inspired by one in the Tales for the Seventh Day, a collection of Sabbath stories by Nina Jaffe. Once, there was a great chef who was famous throughout the land. I mean, she had a book deal, a TV show. She even had her own line of special chili sauces that you could get at Whole Foods. She was proud of her food, and understandably so. She was especially known for her fancy recipes, the ones you might make for a special dinner party or even a wedding or a banquet. She used spices from all over the world and put them together in interesting combinations. She was always experimenting with different ways of cooking, and her experiments were almost always wonderful. In fact, this chef was so good that she taught other people how to cook, and their food was almost as tasty as hers was. Students came from all over the country to take her classes. It was hard to get a seat even. You had to sign up far in advance. Just for fun, this chef would also throw fancy dinner parties once a month. Everyone wanted to be invited to one of these parties. It was the hottest ticket in town. For these dinners, she would bring together her most advanced students and instruct them to cook new and extravagant dishes. Each dish was more amazing than the last. The dinner guests, in awe of the chef's skills, would spend the dinner savoring each bite. All you would hear was, ooh, ah. There was no talking at all. Everyone was too busy marveling at these incredible dishes and noticing all the fancy new techniques that the chef and her students had used. Because she wanted to always feature new dishes to eat at all her parties, the chef would travel far and wide all over the land to experience different foods. Everywhere she went, the town would honor her with a special welcome and a meal. The best cooks would create dishes unique to their region. The great chef tasted them all and requested the recipes of the dishes she liked best. As you can imagine, she ate a lot of food and knew a great deal about how to prepare the very best meals. To be continued. This November, one of my colleagues is engaging in a spiritual practice she calls tiny miracles. Every day, she looks for a tiny miracle somewhere in the world around her. The other day, it was her hot cocoa in a mug with whipped cream on it. You know when the whipped cream starts to sink down into the hot cocoa, and you can tell your first sip is gonna be really good. She posts these tiny miracles as a way of noticing what is in the world around her, of looking for something extraordinary in the ordinary, things she could have overlooked otherwise. I have seen those practices for a couple of years, and some years I've even engaged in them. Gratitude posts in November, reminders each day of the month of the wonderful around us. Perhaps you notice tiny miracles in the food that you eat too, like that mug of hot cocoa, which is like a hug also. Perhaps there are special dishes you are waiting for this Thanksgiving or this holiday season, dishes that you only have at this time of year. If you have any dishes that you are looking forward to, can you shout them out so we can hear about them too? Cheese blintzes, oyster dressing. Oh, what kind of pudding? Pork pudding? Corn pudding. Some kind of pudding. It's going to be really good. Yes. Oh, relish. Yes, absolutely. Someone at 9:15 said Jell-O salad. So, you know, anything with sugar in it. My younger daughter, who I hasten to say gave me permission to share this story, my younger daughter, when she gets a treat, she savors it nibble by nibble. I'm going to be honest, it drives the rest of us kind of bonkers. There we are, we've all gotten a couple of cookies at the beginning of the movie, and of course, we have eaten them, everyone else in the family, quickly because cookies are delicious. And there is my youngest. Little nibble, back on the plate. Little nibble, back on the plate. We can get to the end of the whole movie and she still has cookie to eat. I think she does it partly so that she can gloat when she's eating that cookie and the rest of us have already finished our treats. But I think some of it is because she knows it's delicious and she wants to savor every little bite. Several years ago, I was in a mindfulness class, and we were asked to eat a date as slowly as possible with our eyes closed. You can do this with a raisin, too, which many of us may be more likely to have at home than dates or currants or whichever of those dried fruits you keep in your pantry. Eating a date slowly takes a while. You really notice the texture, the taste, the tiny miracle inside this little piece of fruit. I think that's what my younger daughter notices too when she savors those cookies nibble by nibble. Of course, delicious foods are not the only tiny miracles we might be able to find. Maybe it's the colors of the leaves on the trees that you notice. Or somehow even more beautiful, the leaves on the sidewalk after they have fallen. Maybe it's knowing you have someone you can call when things get hard. Maybe it's feeling connected to your family or your friends. Just like savoring the date, slowing down can help us to notice the tiny miracles all around us. And slowing down can help our heart to feel and hold the hurts, too, that come in life. Today in our congregation, our own church family, we hold pain. We hold the pain of the O'Neill family. Many of you may be connected with their caring bridge and know that they are entering a hard and precious time as they hold and love Brent as he enters hospice. We hold the pain of the O'Neill family and of everyone who loves them and cares for them. That pain, that is part of this world too. Just like the joy and the love that we hold. And we are big enough here, our arms wide enough to hold it in this community, and our hearts big enough to hold it all right here with each other's help. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation now. Take Take a breath. Spirit of life and love, God of many names and far beyond our naming, we know you are everywhere. A spirit of love that holds us when we are sad. A spirit of love that celebrates with us when we are joyful. Help us to be love. Help us to show love. Every time we smile at a friend or a stranger. Every time we reach out to each other. Every time we remember that our hearts and our arms stretched out are big enough to hold all. Spirit of life and love, be with us now and help us to show what love looks like in the world. May it be so. Amen.
The story continues. One evening, while the chef was traveling home from one of her many tours, having had a very, very successful visit in one of the biggest, fanciest cities in America, our chef got herself turned around on a twisting countryside road. She decided to stop. There was a small country house, and she needed directions to where her hotel was. She hoped that she could find a place to rest for the night before continuing on her journey, but she didn't know how to get to the hotel. She went up and she knocked on that front door. And instead of going to a hotel, the most amazing thing happened. They opened the door and welcomed her in. The family welcomed her in and insisted that she spend the night with them. They explained that there was no hotel very close by, and anyway, they loved having guests stay with them. Happily, the chef had arrived at exactly the perfect time. Dinner was about to be served. The family's father took a casserole out of the oven as they prepared to gather around the table. The brother tossed a salad with fresh vegetables. The sister sliced the bread and put fresh churned butter on the table next to it. "Oh, let me help," said the chef. She set the table carefully for all of them. When they were seated, the family had a ritual. They held hands, and the chef felt the tiny hand of the sister in hers and reached out and took the brother's in her other hand. The father then said these words, "To have food upon the table," and the children chimed right in, "is a blessing," they said. The father said, "The sunset and the possibility of another sun rising again tomorrow," and the kids chimed in, "is a blessing," they shared. The love of family, the warmth of friendship, the grace of the Spirit is a blessing, the children and the chef said together. And then they laughed, happy that the chef had shared in their ritual and joined them in saying grace. They ate, and during the meal, everyone told stories about their day, the highs and the lows, the surprising things that happened, anything they saw that brought them joy that day. The tiny miracles were shared all around that dinner table. Throughout the meal, the chef couldn't believe how delicious the food was. With all her traveling, all of her fancy dishes, and her special techniques, she felt she'd never eaten food that was this delicious, that was this good, that was this full of sustenance. What was the secret, she wondered? She didn't want this dinner to end, but all things must end, and the children had to go off to bed. Before she headed upstairs to the guest room where she would be spending the night, the chef said to the father, "Can I have your recipe?" He was flattered. The idea that a chef had enjoyed his simple meals so much touched him, so he wrote the recipe out carefully in his handwriting on a piece of paper, and he handed it to the chef. She took it. She went upstairs to the guest room, and she tucked that recipe away, knowing she would use it soon. She settled into the bed. She fell into a deep sleep. And in the morning, she woke up, refreshed, ready for the day, and set off on the next part of her trip. To be continued.
The family in our story shared a blessing at the table. Maybe you share a blessing too, or clink your glasses, or light some candles. We are going to hear now a piece of music that is a kind of blessing, an expression of gratitude. And as you listen, I invite you to move your body as you are moved as well. Perhaps when you hear "we give thanks," you might make a gesture of gratitude, open arms or folded hands. Perhaps you might gesture up when you hear "this precious day," or "all gathered here." However you feel moved, we invite you to move your arms, your head, to sway, to clap, as we share our blessing in music.
Thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
In the morning, after her restful sleep, the chef rode on toward home. When she got home, she went immediately to her kitchen, gathered her most excellent students, and gave them copies of the recipe that the father had handed her. The chef told them to start preparation for a dinner party the next day, one that she knew would be the most incredible of all. The students were surprised to see the simple ingredients and easy techniques in the recipe, but of course they would never doubt the great chef. They started work, and the chef sent out the invitations for this most special of dinner parties. The next day came, the guests arrived, and the casserole, salad, and bread were served with great flourish at the beautifully set table, dripping with crystal and silks. Everyone waited for the chef to take the first bite of this incredible meal. The room was hushed as she picked up her fork. The chef took a bite and chewed. Something was wrong. Something was missing. This was not at all like the meal she had had at the farmhouse. Dismayed, the chef ordered her students to explain what they had done differently, but they promised they had only followed the recipes exactly as they were written down. So the chef sent someone to go to the farmhouse and get the father to come tell her what the matter was. Well, he came as soon as he could to see what the chef might need. Waving the recipe page in the air, the chef asked him what missing ingredient he had left out of the recipe. Was it a special spice? Perhaps the chef should have used a different pan. Was there a new oil the chef didn't yet have in her extensively stocked kitchen? The father looked at the recipe. He looked at the fancy table, still set from the disappointing meal. He looked at the chef, anxiously waiting for his answer. "What's missing," he replied, "cannot fit in a recipe. Did you and your guests make the meal together? Did you hold hands while giving thanks? Did you share the stories of your week and of your life during the meal?" "No," the chef replied. None of that had happened. Then the chef realized that sharing a meal together, what we call breaking bread together, was about more than just eating good food. It was about working together, sharing lives, sharing laughs, and sometimes sharing tears. It was about being thankful for the food, not because it was fancy or the best, but because being together to enjoy the food would nourish you, your family, and your friends. In fact, the chef realized that even though she enjoyed preparing and eating food, the food wasn't really the most important thing. It was gathering together with gratitude and love. After that, the chef decided to give small, intimate dinner parties, which were conveniently more COVID-friendly, but that's a different story. She and her friends would work together with students, sharing work in the kitchen and teaching each other their favorite recipes. And when the food was ready, they would all sit together, give thanks, and enjoy the very best of meals.
Are you hungry? I'm sitting up here starving, guys. All this talk about food. Are you hungry? I could eat. Are you hungry? I could eat. Family dinner and creating meals and sharing food were important parts of the Sissel household. I could eat was a regular refrain in that family of 2 adults and 3 children. We had family dinner together every night when the kids were small. Over the years, I probably tucked about 1,000 handwritten love notes into sack lunches that went off with them to school. And at the end of the year, at Christmas, there was always an enormous repast. And at the center of that meal was a Coca-Cola spiral-sliced ham, bone in, because the bone is important. You need that for New Year's Day for black-eyed peas to bring in the new year. The meals that we had, the laughter that was shared, all of it was wonderful. Part of our ritual, part of the shenanigans that occurred at dinner time was playing the dozens. If you're not familiar with the dozens, that's a zippy way to tease people that you love. Did you think about that green sweater this morning when you put it on? You might want to run a comb through your hair before you go out with Marsha on Friday. I'm not so sure about what you want to watch on television, but I'm not watching that with you. The dozens were part of what we did at dinner time, and there was so much food. There was so much food. We always had more than enough to eat. When I was in the thick of parenting, the Sissel kitchen had to feed 2 adults and 3 children 3 times a day. Now that's 15 meals a day, 5 breakfasts, 5 lunches, and 5 dinners. We felt a bit like the hobbits feel when they're having second breakfast and third breakfast, and there were always snacks, plenty of snacks, popcorn, pretzels, 5 kinds of cookies, because like good individualistic folks, we all had our own favorite kind of cookie and refused to share it. There were so many different beverages in the corner cabinet in that kitchen that it looked actually like the Safeway beverage aisle. In that kitchen, there usually was orange juice. There was Coke. There was Diet Coke, not Coke Zero, Diet Coke, which is not the same as Coke Zero, even though both of them have 0 calories. There was Sunkist orange soda. Dear parents, Sunkist orange soda is caffeinated, in case you didn't know. There was Welch's grape soda, no caffeine in that. There was spring water, club soda, Gatorade whole milk, 2% milk, cran grape juice, my personal favorite, diet ginger ale, and for the adults, there was tonic water. Well, you get the idea. With 5 distinct sets of taste buds in that house, and 2 parents who were regularly told by their children that if you didn't have the right individual beverage for each one, you were suppressing their individuality and abusing them. That was a lot of beverages. It was a lot of meals. It was a lot of laughter. Grocery shopping to make those meals and stock that kitchen was fun too. Usually only one of the children came to the store with me. I learned early on that by focusing my time and attention on just one of them, I was able to feed our parent-child relationship in a way that happened at no other time. I also learned about parallel conversations. Children between the age of 10 and 20 tell you things when they are parallel to you, not looking at you, particularly in a car, that they don't tell you in any other space. They also got to change the radio, and by changing the radio to their favorite station, they enriched me. I learned about music I had never heard before. Parallel conversations. DC hip-hop music, those were the best way to get a preteen and an adolescent loosened up where they would talk to you. Our mundane chattering about foodstuffs in the grocery store was another entry point. We ended up discussing the advantages of whole wheat pasta over regular elbow macaroni, and part of that conversation turned to nutrition. When we chose fresh produce, it opened their eyes. There was a moment I remember talking about urban food deserts and how race and class mean that nutritious food is not unilaterally available in these United States. What I learned most of all was the time spent together is what mattered the most. Being present and paying attention to them in that one-to-one situation was what mattered the most. The tiny miracle took place in that special moment that belonged only to them, when they were seen, when I saw them. That space of grocery shopping and choosing their own beverage allowed us to be present for each other in a way that did not happen anyplace else. We were in a grocery store when they learned that children right here in the DMV go to bed hungry night after night. One of them wanted to know why there was that grocery cart at the end of the register near the doorway that had a sign on it, "Drop something in this cart." One of my children asked me, why do you always put something in that grocery cart? Who's the food for? And I had a really simple answer. We have more than enough to eat. Lots of people do not. That's why we give some of it away. There's a distinct moment when a 7 or 8-year-old child of mine was very quiet after that. And I remember them taking their Fruit Loops and dropping them into that empty cart. Oh, they can have my cereal. I'll eat Wheaties with Dad instead. When your 8-year-old solemnly puts their Fruit Loops into an empty grocery cart, earmarked for a food bank, and for those who go without, because they want to make sure that other kids have enough to eat. As a parental unit, you know you've done something right. And you know that the world instantly is becoming a better place because of the children. To have food upon the table is a blessing. The sunset and the possibility of another sunrise tomorrow is what? Is a blessing. The love of family, the warmth of friendship, and the grace of spirit, say it with me, is a blessing. This week, when you gather with your friends and your family and you express gratitude, remember, that love is too a blessing. May your Thursday be filled with joy and turkey. Blessed be. Today we have one of the most important rituals that this congregation goes through. We get to welcome new members into our tribe today. They're entering this collective with hope and possibility in their hearts. They're promising to participate in and support the ministries of our church. The new members that we welcome today are becoming part of the tribe. They are Gail Hermosillo, John Acton, Ashley Johnson, Nathan Miller, Kimberly Walters, and Carol Wilkin. 6 new members. Will you all please join me here on the front of the chancel?
That's great. Do you want to come right here?
That's perfect. Today, each one of you has chosen to embrace the spirit of love, welcome, and understanding that flows through this church. It is my hope that UUCA becomes a beacon of light that illuminates your pathway through life. We welcome you to this community, and we join you in this faith.
Ours is a free church. We have no creeds. Know that you are encouraged to bring your ideas and beliefs to this community to share with others. I invite you to join with us in the religious search for meaning and purpose in life, informed by our individual beliefs and the traditions of Unitarian Universalism.
Will the members of the congregation please rise in body or spirit and respond with the words printed on the order of service. We welcome you, as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive and will respect your inherent dignity. In times when it is easy and in times when it isn't difficult. And the new members, please.
We join this church freely and willingly. We accept your welcome and support with gratitude. Thank you for reaching out to us with open hearts and open minds.
Knowing that we may not always live up to our ideals, we ask that you recognize our humanity. And when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us continue to carry the spirit of love. And the congregation, please. We welcome you as equal members of this congregation, of this faith, and as partners on our shared spiritual journey. Please be seated. Sarah? Sarah is offering each of them a card with a couple of pins attached. And part of our swag is also a tiny chalice. It is with great joy that we welcome each of you as new members of this community today. Will you each please take a moment and sign the membership book as you leave the chancel? I'll start with you. You're going to sign right there, Nathan. Come to the table, all of you.
Yesterday, November 20th, was the Transgender Day of Remembrance. This is a special day that was set aside to acknowledge the deaths of transgender people. In 2021, there have been at least 45 deaths. That number is deeply disproportionate to the transgender population at large. It is also disproportionately composed of primarily Black and Latinx transgender women. Please make time to read and reflect upon their stories, which were linked in this week's Connections e-newsletter. During the month of November, 70% of your offering to the weekly collection plate will be designated through Equality UUCA to support the work of Pflag Dc, along with Equality Virginia. Please give generously to continue our congregation's long-held commitment to our work as a welcoming congregation. Pflags, Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gays, statement in observance of the Transgender Day of Remembrance makes clear that family support provides safety for LGBTQ+ youth. Pflag DC is the local branch of the national organization that serves families navigating a way through an unfamiliar and unexpected landscape. UUCA members have long been among the leadership of our local Pflag DC chapter and have established a presence here in our church. Ushers, please come forward to collect the offering. At a recent Worship Associates meeting, Reverend Amanda and Rev CTC brought us the idea of improving the offering language. They liked the overall sentiment, but felt some of the language was exclusive. They wanted to communicate that we are all valuable parts of the community who give and receive in the ways we can. They especially wanted to preserve the idea that we held gratitude not only for how we give, but also for our needs, that both are an essential part of being in community together. At our October Worship Associates meeting, we workshopped the initial changes Rev Amanda and Rev CTC had made. The team provided word and meaning inputs, hey Gail, comma input, hey Dee, rhythm and visual layout ideas. There were a lot of drafts and changes until we landed on the words printed in your order of service. Today we're introducing this new language, and we hope you like it. There are 2 tricky parts, 1 alliteration and 1 6-syllable word. So I want to practice those with you before we go forward. The first is alliteration. Repeat after me. Time, talent, or treasure. Time, talent, or treasure. And that 6-syllable word, vulnerability. All right. Ushers, please come forward, and we'll give this a go in just a moment. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure, for giving brings us joy. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability, for they teach us how to receive in community and love. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation, for it is a blessing to make a difference together.
Wow, I don't think I've ever had anything workshopped in committee get applause before. That's really, I want to invite up Ashley Grieve. This month, we have folks willing to share a little bit about their experience at UUCA, and I'm so grateful that Ashley will share with us.
My name is Ashley, and I've been coming to UUCA since the fall of 2017. To tell you the truth, I had no idea what to expect the first time I came into a UU church. As a matter of fact, I was only there as part of a graduate school assignment, which is maybe a story for another day. I hadn't at that point stepped into a church in many years, so in my ignorance, I figured all church communities should be more or less the same as what I had known growing up Catholic, and I chose a church to visit completely at random. When I walked into the church, I saw rainbow flags and Black Lives Matter posters. There were sexual health brochures pinned to the walls, something that would have made my childhood priest deeply uncomfortable at best. A slideshow featured photos of nature that the congregants had submitted, and a woman recited Maya Angelou's Still I Rise. And that was when I started crying uncontrollably. Of course, everyone was very concerned. "Are you okay?" they asked. And I was just able to answer through my sobs, "I'm confused and happy." Being the slow emotional processor that I am, it was months before I was ready to return to a UU church. And when I later moved to Arlington, I literally Googled Unitarian Universalist churches near me, and I showed up in this very room one Sunday. That morning was UN Sunday. Wait, I thought to myself, are we really having a service about the United Nations? For real? Mind blown. Now, this may seem natural to you if you were raised UU, but if you come to UUCA from another faith tradition as I did, you might get where I'm coming from. Because for me, nothing was the same after that day. In the past few years, with the guidance and support of my UUCA family, I've developed my own ideas about my faith. I learned that part of my spiritual practice included anti-racism work. I joined a book club, which became another integral part of my spirituality. I learned that I actually do know how to pray, which you could have fooled me. I even stopped flinching mostly when people used words like God and amen in front of me, because I know now that the meaning is more than the word. The bottom line for me is that my life changed when I walked through these doors, and it keeps changing as I find new ways to engage in the community. So I'm committed to the future of UUCA in the hopes that each of you might find a similar experience here. Thank you.
UUCA, thank you for being a friend. I hope you find friendship wherever you look, in the tiny miracles around you. I hope you make friendship wherever you go. And may you find that it's not just the food, even when it's a really good slice of cheesecake. It's the people gathered around that create love in the world. May it be so for you.